It started with protests against you, massive protests,
Right.
organized protests by the left, and then it moved to impeachment twice,
Right.
and now indictment. I mean, the next stage is violence. Are you worried that they're going to try and kill you? Why wouldn't they try and kill you, honestly?
They're savage animals. They are people that are sick, really sick. I've seen what they do. I've seen the lengths that they go to when they...
The best question of the night by a long shot, from Tucker Carlson to Donald Trump there. But in truth, we're way beyond the point of killing anybody making any difference. In fact, he's already won, as now on the 24th of August. At 3 p.m. Eastern, outside the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, we're awaiting the arrival of Donald Trump. They think they're here to do a mugshot of him and condemn him. They don't realise this is the return of the king. It's a day for celebration and joy, as his own enemies are about to crown him. That's what they don't realise, but they should have listened to Donald Trump, because he's already explained this. He said in recent days, after the third indictment, he said, I just need one more indictment to secure the presidency. And he's right, because this isn't about democracy's out the window. That's gone. Rule of law has been thrown out right now, as we watch, as we await an attempted show trial, which is actually really the return of the king. It's a coronation. You say, what's this about kings and coronations? I thought this is democracy. No, it's not. He understands this absolutely, because this is a huge cultural shift moment. They don't understand the depth and roots of the drama they're playing out by this attempted mugshot, which is actually a coronation. But the roots of that go back into even American Indian culture. And you're going to go next level on this. This is stuff that Donald understands, but actually few else do.
He and 18 others are facing numerous charges for allegedly trying to overturn Trump's loss in Georgia in the 2020 election. The CBC's Magda Gebrselassie is in Washington with the latest for us.
Trump continues to call this a witch hunt, and while he and his co-defendants are being accused of trying to interfere in the last election, he continues to claim that this case against him is trying to interfere in the next election.
It's witch hunt, all right, but let's take your understanding up to the next level. Let's use the Spanish word brujo instead of witch. Spanish brujo also means a misfit, really. Misfit, witch, yeah, someone who doesn't fit in. In many ways, Trump's situation is exactly the same as Charlie Chaplin's situation, where he's caught in the machine, and yet somehow you sense watching Chaplin that he's going to find some means of not being chewed up by the machine. He's the one who can escape it. And what happens if one day the machine takes in somebody that it cannot chew up? What happens then? Well, then the misfit breaks the machine. And they're crowning Trump king, not realizing that you got to watch it. Because if you get somebody caught up in your machine who is indestructible, you've got a big problem. And they are attempting to grind him up in the machine. And unknowingly, they are selecting the king in the process, playing out a drama they don't even understand. The misfit who returns as king. In a funny way, his enemies almost sense that kingship. There's an article from a year ago from Salon. King Trump dreams of a glorious return. It seems preposterous, but we laugh at our peril. Yeah, they think he has delusions of grandeur. Time magazine mocked him for King Me, someone who saw himself as having these capacities. And yes, he does. That came out in the Financial Times article, one of the trumpets there. And the trumpets are a notorious bunch who support Trump. But Trump picks on his iPad Heroes by David Bowie. the same song that played as he walked off stage half an hour earlier, and that this writer heard blasting from Tiffany's wedding a few days earlier. So yeah, Trump does see himself as a hero. And like the king of comedy before him, he's taken on the machine. And this is the return of the king. Ever since the last US presidential election, well, since around about 9 months after that election, I've been telling you that a second American Revolution is brewing in the United States, and one which is more than just an American Revolution. Because the backdrop to what we're saying right now is that BRICS are meeting internationally, and his enemies, Trump's enemies, are doing about as well in defending the globalist interests as they are in stopping the BRICS, which they're not, as everyone jumps ship, and in dealing with Putin, which they're not, as the war in Ukraine goes predictably downhill. This is their demise taking place. It's all so symbolic, and it's all the return of the king. Trump's like a dangerous version of Charlie Chaplin. You know, Chaplin could but laugh at the machine. But let's show you the roots of that, and the similarities between Chaplin and Trump, and why this is a coronation that's taking place right now. Because Trump has something special about him, that same dynamic. This is a 1991 classic by Robert Pirsig, who wrote Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. This is Lila, an inquiry into morals, and there's a passage in that of Match just marked with an old lotto ticket there. And I'll just read that to you because an online version of that, and that'll explain the Trump and Charlie Chaplin connection to you, because the brujo, and let's just read this, the brujo is a misfit, and in a tribal frame of values, there's two kinds of goods going on, two kinds of good and evil, and each culture has its own pattern of static good derived from fixed laws and the traditions and values that underlie them. And that pattern of static truth is an essential structure of the culture and defines it. And but in addition, there's a dynamic good that's outside of any culture, that cannot be contained by any system of precepts, but has to be continually rediscovered as a culture evolves. Good and evil are not entirely a matter of tribal custom. If they were, no tribal change would be possible, since custom cannot change custom. There has to be another source of evil outside tribal customs that produced a tribal change. We're talking in terms of tribes, and that's why kingship is relative. That's why this is so important. If you had asked the brujo, the misfit, what ethical principles he was following, he probably wouldn't have been able to tell you. He's just doing what he feels he needs to do. He's just has to be himself in the way he needs to be himself. But he's the precursor of deep cultural change. A tribe can change its values only person by person, and someone has to be first. And whoever's first is obviously going to be in conflict with everybody else. He didn't have to change his ways to conform to the culture only because the culture was changing its ways to conform to him. And that is what made him seem like such a leader. Probably he wasn't telling anyone to do this or do that as much as he was just being himself. He may never have seen his struggles as anything but a personal one. But because the culture was in transition, many people saw this brujos, this misfit, this shamanic change warrior, and his ways to be of higher quality than those of the old priests, and they tried to become more like him. He was dynamic quality. Dynamic quality is laughter, as expressed by the king of comedy. But dynamic quality is also kingship, as is taking place now, as Donald Trump is crowned the new king of this social transformation by his very enemies, none of whom seem to realize what they're doing. But he in his heart, he does. And not a moment too soon, as John Voight reminds us.
President Trump was the only man that was beaten down by lies, and now, my friends, he will prove to all that liberty will show itself once again with the hands, the knowledge, the love, the sweat and tears of each and every man and woman who is proud to be an American.
The lady has held forth the sword from the lake surface, and Trump has taken it long ago. He took it. And the rest, as they say, is history. That's the beautiful truth of it. And thanks very much for joining me for that. Great to be back on air. And I've been doing a Jordan Peterson. I'll tell you some more about that in upcoming. And I'll also catch you up to date on developments which other people aren't perhaps explaining in quite the sort of next level, beautiful, truthy way that I try to do. And thanks for your company. Give me your comments below as to what you think about the kingship of Donald Trump. And I look forward to your company again. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so recently. It does help. And for the beautiful truth and breakfornews.com, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting. See you soon.